Hello, masters and humans, I suppose, and welcome back to the channel. Now, I know you might be confused about what's going on with my voice. Don't worry, I'll explain that in an update video tomorrow. But for today, we are here to talk about episode 21 of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime Season 2. But before we get into the video proper, quick reminder if you haven't done so yet, to hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, set notifications to all, and let all of AnyTube know that you're here, or I will eat you. I'm a zombie. I can do that. But with that said, let's go ahead and talk about this week's episode, shall we? So we have a lot to get into this week, so just go ahead and sit down, buckle up as we get into it. My dear sweet masters, a lot happened. This is a very jam-packed episode, and we do certainly have a lot to go through. Now, I am going to be doing my best to sort of keep this truncated. You know, I don't want to go too long into different areas that don't really need to be expanded on, so we're going to do our best. So we're talking about episode 21 here, the Adalman, the Index Finger. So I do feel as though starting with Adalman might be, you know, the best bet, as he is essentially I don't want to say the main focus, because he's not really. Like, it's like Walpurgis is the big thing for me, but Adalman, is probably the big focus of the episode for a lot of people. But for me, it is Adalman. Adalman is great, but I do want to start by just kind of talking about the lead up to that. So storming Clayman's castle, and I will say that when this was getting set up, that Shuna was going to go with them, I was sort of shocked by that, because it didn't seem like something that she should be doing. Like, I've always sort of been under the impression that Shuna is this character who needs to be sort of protected, that she's more of a white mage, right? Like, sort of the characters who can deal out damage when they're going up against certain foes, ironically enough, undead foes, but at the same time, ones that sort of need to be protected more further in the back than in the front lines. So seeing Shuna go storm Clayman's castle felt strange to me originally, but pretty much from the jump, like from the start of the episode, right? Like, we see her make Rimuru's outfit that he's going to wear to Walpurgis, and then right after that she's like, okay, I guess I should go, and you see sort of her expression change. It becomes more strict, right? And then once she lands near Clayman's castle with Shuei and Hakuro, her whole demeanor is different. Like, she just immediately seems more strong and confident. And Shuei recounts that pretty much from meeting Rimuru, she was no longer a princess that needed protecting. And I think that that's really cool. I'm glad that they shone a light on Shuna. And speaking of light, Shuna at one point uses Overdrive, this spell called Overdrive, which as soon as I heard it, all I could think of was just Sunlight Yellow Overdrive! Right? Just like imagining Shuna doing, pulling out some Harmon skills from JoJo's. And keep JoJo's in mind, by the way, because there's a certain character who appears in this who is a JoJo's person. But, yeah, Shuna using Overdrive just made me think of Jonathan right away. And I was like, oh my god, Shuna knows the ripple? I didn't know! Shuna knows how to use, Hammond? That's crazy. But yeah, it was cool seeing Shuna get a lot of big spotlight. And I do feel as though, again, like I said, it's well-deserved, because she's a character we've known for so long now. And it's nice, again, like I said, to see her finally, like, stand up and take charge. Like, she's always been important, and I've always liked Shuna, but to see her get, like, a big moment where she's, like, not only that she tanks an entire army single-handedly, right? Like, an undead army by herself, just, like, essentially, like, being Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, just, what say you? You know? Like, just showing up and taking charge. But the fact that she is still, like, the character that we like, I think is important, right? It's not like she's suddenly, like, a stone cold badass. It's that she gets a moment where she's as strong as the others, right? Like, she shows that she is just as useful, but also that people highly respect her. Like, by the end, Adalman says that it's not that she has any kind of grudge, or that he has any kind of grudge against her. or anything like that. And if anything, he actually really respects her and appreciates that that she opened his eyes. And I feel as though that was really cool. I enjoyed seeing that. I thought that was really sweet. Adalman's view on Shuna. And it's not like the others aren't doing anything. Like, we definitely, like, we see the others go toe-to-toe with, like, this undead swordsman and a death dragon. You know, like, hot damn. Even Zentreya would be impressed by that. A death dragon. That's metal as hell. Zen would be so impressed. Zen would be so proud. But, well, maybe not, because Zen's a dragon. I don't know if Zen would like seeing a zombie dragon. Still, that's pretty metal, is what I'm trying to say. But the only thing more metal than that is the man commanding them. Adalman, who is a skelly that controls other skellies. That is really intriguing to me. I don't know why. But, yeah, basically they stumble across an army of skellies. And this would probably be a bit spooky, right? Like, this would be spooky if the CG wasn't super rough on some of this guys. Because, like, when they showed up, I'm like, ooh, that's rough. That's not, like, Overlord levels of oof, but it's pretty close. Like, when the skellies first show up, I'm like, oh, look, it's Augie's friends. And then you see the CG, and it is rough. But you don't see them for very long, so it's not that bad. Because when Adalman shows up, he's 2D. Like, they actually draw Adalman. But when they show, like, the group shots, I understand why they did not feel like drawing that many skeletons, so they decided to resort to CG. And it is noticeable. Like, in fact, there's one shot in particular where, like, our characters are sort of placed in front of the skeletons, and it looks rough. But obviously, we're not here to talk just about, like, the CG, because, again, it's not a big deal, and it's not really there for that long. So I don't really see it being a problem. Maybe some people will have a problem with it. I didn't. I just thought it was, like, a moment of, like, oof, and then we just kind of keep going. But the big thing for me is Adalman. Because this guy, this friggin' guy, he basically, like, he has this moment where he shows up and he is sort of like he essentially feels, again, like I made like the Lord of the Rings joke, but he does feel like the leader of like the army of the undead, right? Where he's just sort of he's a skeleton who commands the other skeletons. And the instant we see him, you can tell that there's something to this guy. Like, there's a lot of mystery surrounding him, the death dragon, the swordsman. And I think with Adalman, the biggest thing for me is his design. And yes, that's right, it is time for design time. So when we see Adalman's design, right? We haven't done design time in a long time, oh my god. But when we see Adalman's design, he is wearing these white robes. He is a man of the clergy, right? Like, you can tell immediately that in his living days, he was likely some sort of priest, just by the attire he's wearing. I'm not even going into the color design yet, just the design itself, right? Like, white robes, the sort of, like, mini cape thing, and then it's not a scarf, but you know what I mean, right? Like, the drapes that people wear. Doth mother know you weareth her drapes? Wow, that's an old reference. But no, it's like the sort of, like, white and gold scarf thing. And to me, like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, he's a priest, right? Like, he is some form of priest in some capacity. So that immediately is sort of intriguing, right? It's like, how did a priest end up as a skeleton, right? Like, aren't they supposed to be men of God? They are men of God, right? Like, shouldn't they be, like, sort of immune to being turned into undead? But yet, here we stand. And when it comes to the robes themselves, it's very interesting, right? So the white robes, like, again, very much a man of the clergy, right? Like, he's some sort of religious guy. And that's not where the religious vibes end with his color design. As the sort of mini cape, it's purple. Now, as you know, purple is sort of... I've talked about purple before, and purple usually sort of adds a splash of mystery to a character design. Like, when you see purple, your brain goes like, mystery, right? You become Hatsuharu from Fruits Basket, just mystery. But the other big thing that purple is associated with is royalty and religion. So, of course, he's wearing purple. He's a religious man. He's a pious man, right? Like, he is a man of the heavens, right? Like, so, of course, having purple in his design, a splash of purple, not only adds a bit of mystery to the character, but also indicates that he is, he's a man of the cloth. He's religious. Right? Since purple is, you often see priests wear purple. I believe that's around Advent? I'm talking about, like, the Catholic religion. I don't quite remember. Like they wear purple around sometime around that time, and that's usually like your brain's like if you're if you grow up in that religion, then usually your brain sort of associates purple with that time period, and usually when the priest is wearing purple. So that's sort of what the purple reminded me of. But I do say splash of mystery because like there is a lot to Adalman that we don't know. And I think that the purple is not only meant to indicate religion, but also like just, add a little splash of mystery. Like what's up with Adalman? What's up with the swordsman and the dragon? Like that's crazy. And then the white and gold scarf. I think the gold crown to me is just sort of meant to represent like he's a bit of like he has an elegant air to him, right? Like he's a bit I don't want to say hoity-toity, but like he's a bit sort of like he moves with an air of elegance and grace, right? Like so that's the gold. The gold usually represents like sort of like rich or elegant, right? So like he moves with an elegant air to him, but he's also a bit of a goofball. After Adalman is freed, because he does get taken down by Shuna, he does seem very strong. I should stress, like he is able to use disintegrate, which we know can screw people up. Right, like we've seen it used on Rimuru. Like that's a really powerful spell. So Adalman and his crew are pretty based, like they're pretty intense. But once Shuna takes them out, they are then freed of their curse because, as we find out, Adalman was bound here by a demon lord called Kazalim, who, to my knowledge, we don't know anything about. At least I don't recall anything about Kazalim. We might. There's so much talking in the show. So like they might have mentioned Kazalim and I was just sort of like eyes glazed over going like what? Because you guys know me, I am an action junkie. I am sorry about that. But the action in Slime is so good. Like the action in Slime is so good. I think the action in Slime is so good because there's a lot of build up to it, alright? So it's like I should be paying more attention, and for that I apologize. So if they mentioned Kazalim before, that is my bad. I genuinely don't remember. So to me I was like, who is Kazalim? There's demon lords before. Is he dead? Did he leave? Where'd he go? Right? Like, so that's interesting. But yeah, he was bound here. So once he is essentially beaten by Shuna, this then breaks the curse put on him and his crew, and they are freed. And this leads him to wanting to meet this person who Shuna has put so much reverence on, and that is Rimuru. So he says that he wants to help Shuna, and he hopes that in doing so that she will let him meet Rimuru. And Shuna's like, I guess, right? So Shuna's like, yeah, sure. So like, because they could use the help, right? So Adalman then decides that he's going to help them storm Clayman's castle, which I think is super cool. So he is no longer the index finger of Clayman. And I think that's really cool because I immediately loved the design. He reminded me of my buddy Augie, like the first face this face saw. So it's nice. I like that he's tagging along. Also, I do have to give a huge credit to Tomokazu Sugita, who voices Adalman. If you don't know, they voiced Nikaido from Kamui, and they are so funny as Nikaido. They are so funny, and you can hear some of that in Adalman, especially towards the end when Adalman becomes more of a good guy. Like, you can hear Nikaido in the voice, and it's really funny. But you might also know him as Joseph Joestar, another person who can use Hamon. The OG Joseph Joestar, not old man Joseph, young man Joseph. Young man, you can use Hamon. Anyway, young Joseph is voiced by Sugita. And I don't know if I can really hear Joseph, but I definitely hear Nikaido. But there's like that playful side to Adalman that does remind me a bit of Joseph Joestar. And he also voices Marlowe from Attack on Titan. Dear sweet Marlowe. Not Marco, Marlowe. Different character. And then Lizard Priest from Goblin Slayer. I miss Goblin Slayer. The only reason I'm mentioning Lizard Priest is twofold. One, this is the second time he's voiced a priest. And two, I just miss Goblin Slayer. I haven't seen Goblin Slayer in a long time. But yeah, that's Adalman. And I loved him. He's great. I love him. He's great. He's great. I love him. But that does move us on to Walpurgis. So Walpurgis happens, and Rimuru is pissed. Like, Rimuru is very mad. But before we get into the why, I do want to say that this felt like a long time coming. And I think it's cool because when the OP plays, they couldn't have picked a better time for the OP to play. If you recall, the OP starts with Rimuru, with Rimuru, Shion, and our best boy, our good boy, walking through the hall, right? Like walking down like this corridor, right? And it's like they all look super cool together, right? And it's that's where like the song like the song starts kicking up. And the way they framed this episode, they walk through the door and you see them begin walking on the path, and then the OP starts and it's smooth as butter. Like it looks like that scene leads so perfectly well into the OP that I assume that had to be on purpose. And I was like, oh, I am a sucker for really good like opening and ending like segues. Like it's one of the reasons why I love like ReZero, right? Like ReZero perfectly segues into its openings and like its OPs and EDs. Like when you can perfectly segue, oh, it's just it makes me it gives me the chills, right? It's like ooh, and they perfectly segued into it. It was fantastic, right? Fantastic start to Walpurgis, right into the OP, super sick. And the Demon Lords, they ain't playing around. Now, Veldora is definitely more interested in his manga than he is talking about the different Demon Lords, and apparently there's like 10 of them. And one of them didn't show. I believe one of them didn't show up. So there's only 9 showing up for Walpurgis. But Guy shows up and immediately is glaring daggers at Rimuru, which is like yikes, because Guy is supposed to be super friggin' tough. And then, you know, like other characters show up. There's like the giant guy who I was just sort of like, yeah, he's cool. And then there's, what's her name? And like the Frey shows up and I'm like, oh yeah, this Frey. Okay, cool. All right, a bunch of characters that I'm like, either I don't really have an opinion on yet or just look cool. I'm not going to do any design times on them because we don't get a great look at their designs. And the one that I would have loved to have talked about is Dino. We don't get a great look at his design. Like I wanted a shot where I can really see like what his full design is, but every time he talks, he's either in the background or he's sort of like his side is to the camera, so you don't get like a full shot of what his design looks like. So probably next week I think we'll probably talk about Dino. But Dino walks in like a total mood, like he's tired, he don't want to be there, but then he immediately starts laughing, right? Like, and it's, I don't know, it is a good time. Like he's laughing at Ramirez, like just being like, hey, you're still short as hell. Like it's just a fun time. I think Dino is a total mood, and I have a feeling he's probably gonna end up being my favorite of the other Demon Lords, like outside of Rimuru. So yeah, I'm a big Dino guy immediately. Dino might end up being my favorite character, just because like I love like either like the goofy and lazy or like the little shit type characters. So yeah, Dino's my guy right now. I really enjoy Dino quite a bit. And then Leon. Sorry, you'll see why I said she's in a second. Leon sees Shizu in Rimuru, and Rimuru looks ready to deck Leon in the face. And for a second, I was like, why does he see Shizu? Because I had forgotten. So, do you remember the last slime video I did where I was like, I don't know if I recognize these characters. Maybe they showed up before and I just don't remember. And everyone's like, oh, because first of all, comment section again, slime fans being like, oh, he doesn't remember. Oh, this will be a good surprise. So nobody told me anything. They're just like, oh no, we've seen Leon before, right? So I was like, oh okay, but like nobody told me where. They're just like, oh yeah, you've seen him. So I was like, oh okay. And so when he sees Shizu, I was like, how? And then Rimuru's like, hey Leon, can I hit you? And I was like, wait, and then it clicked and I was like, oh snap, right? Like that made that meeting hit so hard when I like that moment of remembering like who Leon was. I'm like, oh, he's gotta go. Oh, he gotta go. Oh, Rimuru, you gotta drop this man like a bad habit. Like you gotta whoopeth this man's ass. And speaking of whoopeth some ass, friggin' Clayman shows up with Million. And I was furious. I was so furious to see Milliam get thwacked like that. You know, in the reaction that I did, where I was absolutely furious with what Clayman was doing to Milliam, I was like, I have to control myself. I'm a butler, you know? I'm supposed to be very controlled. And sometimes I just can't help myself. I have to get mad, and I was so mad seeing Clayman put hands on Milliam like that. I didn't like that. Milliam's my girl. I don't like seeing her in that defenseless state. I don't know. It made me all sorts of angry, and I can only imagine what Rimuru is gonna do. Like Rimuru's face, like this screenshot that I've been showing, I had to show this screenshot the entire time because Rimuru's face here was like my face. I was like, oh, Rimuru, make it long and painful. Make this man's demise long and painful. I'm talking like GER, like infinite death loop type stuff. Make it long and painful, Rimuru. This man's gotta go. Him and Leon, they both gotta go, and it's gotta be brutal. It's gotta be brutal. But yeah, this was a fantastic episode. Absolutely fantastic episode. And again, I know that I've said this before. You all know. I may be a butler, and I think the butler vibe makes people assume that I am a man of, calmness and elegance, and I am. However, when it comes to my anime and my manga, I like action. I like action all the time. I feel like people assume that action is like, you can't tell a story with action. That tells me you've never seen a good fight scene in your life. Except you have, because you're watching Slime. So it's like, how are you watching Slime and you don't understand that you can tell a really compelling story through simply movement, just through action? Right? Like, so for me, I think Slime is at its best when it's incorporating both the talking and the action. In the last little bit, it's been nothing but talking, right? This is Slime at its peak, where it's like we have talking scenes and we have action scenes. Like we get both, and it's like, yes, it's so good. It's so good. When Slime hits, it so hits. It hits so hard, and it's so nice because again, this season has been so slow. And I don't mean this season of Slime. The season of Slime's been like good, right? But it's this summer season has just been so slow. So it's nice to have something hitting, right? Like Hamefura and Slime. Hamefura and Slime need to go to the chiropractor because they've been carrying this whole season on their backs. Oof. Anyway, I think I'll wrap up this video here. And there you have it, everyone. That is going to do it for today's video, so I certainly hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to boop that up snoot, share if you care, leave a comment down below, and of course, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and set notifications to all. Let all of AniTube know that you're here. And of course, before we go, I have to give a huge thank you to my wonderful masters who help support this channel either by joining us via the link in the description to our Patreon page or by hitting that join button right beside the sub button down below. Either way, help support this channel tremendously, and I would sincerely appreciate it if any of you even consider it. Thank you very, very much. But with that said, that is going to be it for today. So my masters and guests, I certainly hope to see you again soon, and until then, clean your room. It's filthy.